Hey, everybody. Welcome. It's Don't Worry Wednesday. How's it going out there? You guys look good.
Good.
Hi,
You look good.
hi, well, thank you, Joe. You look good too. You look smashing, actually. I have to just say.
I
So,
haven't smashed anything. I don't know
you
what he's talking about.
really? Wow. Well, you should start. Go
Okay.
smash something behind you. You got a bunch of stuff back there.
Just turn around. There's nothing back there to smash. Oh, shoot. I smashed something and I didn't mean to. Whoops.
Welcome to Double Cup of Don't Worry, Joe. That's what we have here tonight. It's the Double Cup of Joe show. Don't Worry Wednesday. Thank you, Princess, for that nostalgic throwback. That's awesome. Me and Joe used to do a show together every morning. Every morning at what 6 a.m. or something crazy ridiculous like that.
Early.
Yeah, it was
Very,
nuts.
very early.
You know, and I remember when I talked to you about doing that show. I remember texting you and you're like, and I'm like, hey, we should do this show. And you're like, okay. I'm like, what time do you want to do it? You're like, whatever. I'm like, how about 6 a.m.? You're like, okay. And I'm like, when do you want to start? And you're like, whenever. And I'm like, how about Monday?
Yep. Might as well start early.
And you were
It
like,
doesn't get easier if you wait.
all right. That's true.
Sometimes you just gotta punch that ticket because you push it back and then the excuses start rolling out.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want that.
That's very true. It's very true and very wise of you to just say, all right, we're jumping in with both feet. Let's do it. So, yeah, well, welcome everybody. This is Don't Worry Wednesday. This is a show where we talk about you guys and your guys' stuff that's going on in your lives. We want to do whatever we can to help, to be your friend, to walk alongside you on your journey. We're not professional therapists, counselors, or licensed by any means in that regard. Um, but yeah, we just want to be your friend. We want to help in any way we can. And yep. So if you have a topic that you would like us to cover, you can go to don'tworrywednesday.com. That's don'tworrywednesday.com. There's a link there in the chat. And you can click the submit a topic button. And if you'll notice, when you fill out the form, those of you who've filled out a topic there before, there is a new checkbox. So go and fill out a topic and click the new checkbox. I think it's actually required. But we just want to know if you would like your topic to be covered while you're here, or if it doesn't matter to you, or if you want to say, hey, I'm not going to be there. So just do my topic and I'll watch it later. So, and we'd be happy to oblige you in whatever fashion you decide. So, yeah. So if you do have a topic, if you remember submitting a topic to us, please let us know that you're here in the chat. And if you would, kindly at Princess in the chat. Because as to keep the show a little bit more streamlined and rolling, we have decided to not do roll call. We like doing it. It's way fun. We like saying everybody's names. But yes, we've found that we can move things along a lot more smoothly if we just announce, hey, if you have a topic, let us know you're here, and we'd be happy to cover it. So, but I also know sometimes you don't remember if you have a topic. Some of you have several topics. Some of you have a dozen or so topics. And we'll get to them. We definitely will. But anyway, yeah. Let's see. I need to refresh my my screen here. So, all right, cool. Yeah. Hi. How's everybody doing? How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good, Joe. I mean, I'm just feeling like a Joe.
Yeah. Hey, that's all good.
Hmm
That's all good. You are the OG Joe, after all.
No, no, I'm just on like top Joe right now,
You are.
not the OG.
You're
Well,
you're
wait,
the
we're
top.
both 29,
You.
so
That's.
oh no, I'm not 29 for
You're
another
not.
month. Shoot, I'm ahead of myself. I'm only 28. Dang it. So you are the OG.
I'm. I'm still older than you, but not for
Yep.
long.
Not for long.
Not for long. And with us also is Princess. She's our chat room hostess, and she runs so many things behind the scenes for us. She's incredible. How you doing tonight, Princess?
I'm doing fabulous.
Awesome.
Fabulous.
Glad to hear it. Yes, double cup of Wednesday. Yep, our show that Joe and I did at 6 a.m. every morning, 5 days a week. We took Saturdays and Sundays off. So yeah, but we did that, and poor Joe, I felt so bad for him.
Yeah, that's fine.
He didn't like getting up early. I have kind of forced myself to get up early every day, and it's kind of become a habit. But yeah, Joe hasn't acquired that habit. But when you turn 29, it magically will happen.
Yes, I've been waiting for this time, this moment.
You've been waiting. Good. Yep, and that was our show. Our show was Double Cup of Joe show because we were two Joes and it was like morning. So we were like, hey, you want to have a cup of Joe? But Joe never drank coffee.
Yep, I always brought in a mug that was not filled with coffee, but we had mugs.
We did. We did. It looked like coffee. It looked like bubbly coffee.
Yeah,
Because it was usually Pepsi or something.
always.
Yeah,
Always Pepsi.
right on. Something to get you going in the morning, man. You got to do something. But
I had a long drive into work after that. I had to be awake. It was dangerous.
yes, that's true. That's true. You're like, well, I got to leave for work at this time. So if we're going to do this show, it's got to be earlier than that. And I'm like, okay,
Yep.
let's do it, man. If you want to do it, let's do it. It'll be fun. So,
Let's do it.
all right. Well, cool. Well, let's jump right in. What do you say?
Yes, jumping.
We're going to jump
for
in again with both feet. It's going to be amazing. And our first topic that we're going to cover tonight is from Shark Jelly. This was submitted back in March, actually. And it's July now. Holy cow. The year's just going by like crazy. But yes, this is a topic called Phobic of My Gender Identity. And it's coming from Shark Jelly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right there up on the screen for you guys. And then get out of Princess's way so she can read it aloud. So, Princess, whenever you're ready.
I came out to my mom about being transgender and non binary months ago. She ended up being super transphobic towards me. How can I bring this up to her without fearing that she'll do it again? From Shark Jelly.
That is a good question, Shark Jelly. And hold on. My screen's doing something funky. There we go. All right, we got it. We made it. So thank you, Shark Jelly, for submitting the topic. So yeah, you came out to your mom about being transgender and non-binary. She ended up being super transphobic, and you know that tends to be the case sometimes with some people. We do live in a society that's generally tending to be a lot more accepting towards people as they come out as trans, or LGBTQIA, all of those. There's a lot more awareness and there's a lot more acceptance of people that have those inclinations and that state of being. So I think this is a timely topic. And I don't see Joe here is a school teacher in the public school system.
Oh no, you can't say things like this.
Oh, I can't. I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding. You can't.
Joe is not a school teacher because it's summertime.
Now there's expectations.
And actually, we were talking about licenses. We were talking about, we're not licensed therapists, but Joe is a licensed accountant.
Tax.
It's an amazing thing.
Sometimes.
I gotta talk this guy up for a second. Joe, he started off as a golf pro and then decided, hey, I'm going to be an accountant, and became an accountant and a CPA. And that's no easy task. And he did that. And just after he got his license, he's like, I'm going to be a school teacher.
Yep. That's pretty much how it went.
And you teach science, right?
Yes.
Nothing to
I
do with
teach.
numbers?
Nope. Actually, I mean, there's some. There's a little bit. I use it in chem, but not that much.
Yes. So here's a gentleman who is well versed in many, many topics, and he works with students. And I'm sure you've had to touch on this area of stuff before in your day-to-day living. So I'm going to get out of Joe's way, and I'm going to turn it over to him and see what he has to say. So Joe, take it away.
Oh, thanks, Joe. Now it's you've left it to me to talk about things. Now
Hmm.
you've made it sound like I know what I'm doing,
You do.
which
I have total faith in you.
is a very dangerous thing. Well, that's good. I'm glad you believe in me. There's I forget what anime was, but you don't have to believe in yourself, but you can believe in the me that believes in you. And so
Mm-hmm.
there you go. That'll work out. But yes, Shark Jelly, thank you for your question. There's many things that each of us deal with as we're growing up, and as we're dealing with our parents. It very often um, two things happen as you grow up. One, you realize that your parents are just people too. And two, your parents are a lot smarter. They get a lot smarter as you get older. I don't know how it
Mm.
works out that way,
That's very
but
true.
as you get older, your parents just get a lot smarter. And maybe it's just the fact that you suddenly notice it, but it could just be that they get smarter with time too. And I want to point out that we are all learning new things, right? Like Joe said here, I have moved from being a golf professional to being an accountant to being a teacher. And I'm at 28, probably going to do 3 more jobs according to my wife. And that's a joke, I hope. But you're still growing and you're still learning. Your parents are and you are. And it's very important to be mindful of that uh, because there's so much life ahead of you uh, that you just want to keep learning and understanding. Sorry, I saw a mute screen. I think Joe's trying to mute me. Anyway,
No.
um,
I had to adjust your
you just
volume a
want
little bit.
you want to keep learning and growing and understanding others because you can't make people understand you. Like you can be clear, you can be concise, you can communicate well, but at the end of the day you can't make someone understand you. Some people just won't. And it's not because you're not saying the right things. For instance, I taught summer school math for a while and I taught the right things, but they couldn't understand me. And it's because of differences in where we were coming from, right? Students who are graduating, who are in high school now, have spent a long time working up to that point. And I recognized very early on that these students didn't have the mathematical knowledge necessary to get up to a certain level. So I could teach them all the topics we needed to learn for what we were covering, and that wouldn't matter because they didn't even have a chance to understand what built up into that, right? Like if you try to put the top of a tower on a tiny base, it's going to look funny, right? Like if you just put the top of the Eiffel Tower in like the middle of a park, it'd probably look pretty funny. You'd be like, why that doesn't look like it belongs there. Um, and likewise, if you built half of the Eiffel Tower and just kind of like stopped, you just have like this big platform in the middle of a park. It's like, it's a stage now, but it's not a tower. And so what I mean by that is uh, because you are looking at things from a different perspective, one of you sees like a half-built tower, the other of you is seeing like an incomplete, is seeing like a stage, like, I'm set. Like you're looking at two different things going, where are things going? You're going to come to two very different conclusions. And I just want to preface that because there's a chance that you were saying, how can you bring this up to her again without fearing that she'll do it again? There isn't going to be a level that I can say to you, she's not going to feel that way for a very long time, right? If she is expecting something else, it doesn't matter how long the time passes, she's going to be looking for something different. And so the reason I'm talking to you is because I'm not talking to her, right? She's not here listening to us. So I can't influence her actions or anything like that. But I want you to be considering, okay, what can I do from the position I'm in? And the first thing that you probably want to do in this situation is just identify the differences in what you're saying versus what your parent is probably hearing. I teach biology. So biology is very simplistic. There are only two sexes. There are male and female. And that's it. And up until, in order to demonstrate this to my students who are experiencing in the social media realm transgenderism and other gender identity, I needed to introduce them to the idea that those words didn't mean what you're saying until very, very recently. So I brought out a dictionary from 1980, 2000, and then I pulled up the dictionary definition from the internet. And up until in 1980, gender just meant sex. They were the same thing. In 2000, gender primarily meant sex, but also meant the roles given to a particular sex. So females generally were usually homemakers. That would be a gender role. And in the 2000s, the gender definition sex is actually the lesser used definition, and identity roles is the primary definition. Okay, so I just want you to see that the definitions have shifted, and your parent, who is from an older generation, likely is hearing something different. They're hearing, when you say transgender, that you are somewhere between the sexes. And biologically speaking, there isn't like a middle ground. You'll be one or the other, and that's kind of how your development will continue. Okay? There are certain ways that you can overcome that, but you are going to grow into those things. All right? And so you're deciding right now, all right, part of your identity. And so as you grow into your identity, I recommend that you remove the preface of gender and just move to this idea of identity. Who are you? Because if you focus just on that section of your identity, you don't allow yourself to grow into who you are. Okay, well, I'm expecting, just for understanding where I'm coming from, that you are somewhere in the high school or college, maybe late middle school age range. Okay, so when we're prefacing that, you are somewhere in your developmental stages. And psychologists will tell you that you are developing an identity. That is part of this stage of your life. So in order to do that, you need to work through some of these issues. Part of it will be gender related, but a lot of it has to deal with, what do you enjoy doing? What do you enjoy learning? What are you good at? Okay, those things are just as important, if not more important. Okay, than whatever kind of roles you take on as a gender. They are far more important. Because I'll tell you what, when I come home at night and my wife is still working, I take on the housemaker role because I'm the only one home. And when she's working, she's taking on the role of the money-making role. And if she's taking care of her family, she's taking on the family caretaker role. And if I'm taking care of my family, I'm taking on that role. And you will take on different roles as you grow up. That's part of aging, as it were. So I just want you to consider, all right, what roles What identity am I taking on? What do I see myself being in the future? And stop worrying so much about necessarily your um your gender roles as much as who am I becoming? And then become that thing. Because then you can come back to a parent and say, here's who I am. Here's what I am. But if you start off with a role that's in development, right? If the gender, sex is probably at this stage of your life actually just starting to show, biologically speaking, um, that's in transformation anyway. Why would you tell someone, hey, this is me, I'm a butterfly, if you're still in the cocoon? I mean, you're in the middle. You're not anything yet. You might get there, but wait until the end to kind of figure that out. You are identifying your identity at this stage. You are becoming that person. So let yourself get there. All right. Don't force upon yourself a fight with your parent that you're in the middle of transition on. All right. There's a certain level of when we talk about transgenderism, I can't speak, transgenderism, you are shifting, right? There's a shift that's happening. There's a change that's happening. Okay, that's what trans usually means, between, or usually some kind of transportation. You could use it either way. It depends on what topic you're using it for. I'm getting these looks from Princess, who's like correcting me, so correct me, please. Transistors, like the electrical thing. No.
Transition.
Oh, transition. Yes.
Transistors. What?
Like, sorry, I
Ryan
teach
has
some
entered the chat.
physics too. So there's a couple of there's changes happening, there's shifts happening, there's transitions happening, and so at this stage, just work to build an identity of yourself. And it's difficult because you're seeking kind of that acceptance of a parent that's probably not going to make a difference. So for reference, my parents always said, just go, like, just do the thing. I'd always ask my parents, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And they're like, stop talking to me and just do the thing. Just become that person. We'll talk about it later. Like, you've got to get there. Like, you have to, at some stage, like, just get shoved off a cliff, the metaphorical cliff, and like become who you're going to be. And then you can come back and talk about your gender identity and your other identities that you've become once you get there, once you have that solidified. So if right now, you're not fully like, hey, here is where I see my life going, here's how it's going to be, and I've fully developed and matured as a person, just hang out there. Like, you don't have to re-engage your parent on it immediately, right? Like, you don't have to force the issue, right? And there's some areas where that might become a problem, and I'm sure Joe can talk about that here in a second. But you don't always have to force the issue. Like, you can let it sit for another day. I know it seems quite often that if I don't touch on this thing now, it's not going to get touched on. That's not necessarily true. So there are some things that you can put off to later, and there's some things that have to be addressed right now. And I might suggest to you that this is one of those things. Give it some time, give it some space, and see what happens before you start re-engaging a parent on a question you already have had difficulty with. So find your identity, grow into that person, and then once those things are more solidified for you, then come back to this question, because I think this question is good, but it needs to be broken down into a topic that's several parts. So I'm gonna let Joe go ahead and take it away, and he's probably got another angle because of how large this is that he can address this from. Joe, please stop me from talking.
Stop you from talking. But you did so good, man. I got to tell you. I love what Joe is getting at. And I also want to iterate again what Princess has put in the chat there, that if you're here and you have a topic with us, please just @ Princess in the chat, and then we'd be happy to put you in the queue for tonight, and handle your topic. So, yeah, anyway, but Joe, thank you so much. I love what you were getting at in there. I love especially the part where you were talking about growing into your identity as a whole, not just your gender identity, because there's a lot more to you than just your gender identity, right? And that's one thing. I mean, I love the aspect of the LGBTQIA plus movement. And there may be other things added to the end of that. But the thing that I love about that movement is that it's brought awareness, and it's brought some, it's helped us to integrate people into society. Whereas a lot of the time, before, there were a lot of marginalized people. And that was just a shame. That was really, really upsetting. And I'm glad that we have more awareness and more acceptance of this kind of stuff now, which is great. But still, like Joe was talking about, there's more to you than just that. When it comes to LGBTQ, there's more to you than just your sexual orientation. There's more to you than just your gender. Now, these things are pretty big parts of our identity, but there is more to you than that. And the problem I have with the LGBTQ IA plus movement is that it seems to focus on those parts, those singular aspects of our lives, and say, this is your whole identity. Now, they don't come out and say that, but they make it appear like that's the most important part of your identity. And it's not. There's so much more to you than that. And Shark Jelly, I have to tell you, my heart goes out to you. Like Joe was talking about, there are two biological sexes. There's male and female. Joe's a biology teacher, right? And it's true. And it goes down. I'm going to sound like a broken record for those of you who have heard me handle topics like this in the past. I'm going to say probably about the same stuff that I say, and that is that it goes down to every cell in your chromosomes. Your biological sex is in each cell in the chromosomes of those cells, and there's an X chromosome and a Y chromosome. And if you're female, you have 2 X chromosomes. If you're male, you have an X and a Y chromosome. And that's at the cellular level of our being, our biological sex, right? So if you are one biological sex and you feel your gender is something different, then that's a deep interior battle, because you're fighting with yourself at that deep of a level. And that's a struggle. And I am so sorry that you're dealing with that. I'm so sorry that you have to have that battle going on. And I understand this is a widespread thing. There are a lot of people who deal with this, and I feel for all of them. That, I mean, this is just, we have enough going on in our lives sometimes to add that into our emotional and mental struggle would be a real challenge. And I'm so sorry that that struggle is going on. So I have to tell you that I would imagine, Shark Jelly, that it took you a while to come to terms with this in yourself. That, hey, I'm this biological sex, but I feel like I'm the other gender. I feel like I'm a different gender than my biological sex. And I know, I would imagine that there was like a struggle within for a while that took some time for you to fight through, to come to terms with in yourself on that. And I imagine maybe it took years, months or years, for you to kind of wrestle with this in your head and to finally come to terms with this, right? Now, your parents care about you. Your parents love you. Your mom, I think it was your mom, that when you told her about this, she appeared to be transphobic and acted that way towards you. And I'm so sorry that happened, because, a lot of times, as I'm a parent as well, right? And so I love my kids, and they're wonderful, and for them, if they were going through this struggle, now they're my oldest is 13, so we'll see where this comes about. Some kids start facing this even earlier than that, but I will say that, I will always do my best as a parent to make sure he knows that I love him, and that, whatever is he's wrestling with, I'm here, and I want to help support him, whatever's going on within him. But I will tell you that, it might be taking your mom some time to come to grips with this transition, just like it did for you, Shark Jelly. I would imagine that it took you some time wrestling in your head to come to grips with it. Your mom, like, you came from your mom's body. So in a way, you're a part of her. And there's this maternal instinct. She loves you. She cares about you. She wants the best for you. And for this to get, all of a sudden, maybe out of the blue, coming at her, might have been a shock. And when we're shocked, we respond in all kinds of ways. Sometimes we respond emotionally. Sometimes we respond, very introspectively. Who knows, but sometimes our reaction to such things can be really, just because our initial reaction is not so positive, it doesn't mean that it will always be that way. And maybe she just needs some time, like you needed some time, to wrestle with this in her head, to come to grips with it in her head, to be able to, sort it all out before she can really just be accepting. Because like Joe said, there's a generational thing here, right? Up until the year 2000, gender and sex basically meant the same thing. Your biological sex was your gender. And now it's not necessarily the case. Gender has become a lot more fluid. And so people from an older generation, it's even a little bit harder to come to grips with that, because of that. We were brought up in that environment where sex and gender were the same thing, and they're not necessarily the same thing anymore. But I want to let you know that I would imagine your mom loves you. And this was probably just a reaction. She cares about you. She wants what's best for you. And this, in her mind, might be her concern for the struggle that you're facing with all of this. And she doesn't want you to have to struggle any more than you have to. I mean, as parents, we all know our kids are going to struggle with stuff. And, it's hard to watch your kids struggle. It's hard to watch my kids struggle when they're dealing with bullying. When they're dealing with, one of my sons was bullied quite a bit on the basketball team, and it was a real painful thing for him. And I remember struggling with, I remember getting angry and frustrated, and like my kids being bullied, it was frustrating for me. So in a way, as a parent, we sense what our kids are going through, and we struggle with them. Now, Shark Jelly, it sounds to me like, you probably struggled with this for a while, came to terms with it, and then told your mom about it. But your mom also needs that time to struggle and sort it out and figure it out and, come to grips with what's going on and stuff like that, right? And so I would recommend just try your best to have a little patience And maybe step back, like Joe was talking about. Maybe step back and, you know, more than just your gender identity. Think about the other parts of your identity as well, and consider those and move forward. And as time goes on, and as your mom has a chance to sort through things, then maybe things will smooth out. Maybe things will get better. I mean, who knows? But I just wanted to make sure that you understood that in most cases, parents love their children and they want what's best for them. And Shark Jelly, I'm so sorry. I know this is painful. I know this is hard. And it's hard enough to go through the battle in yourself. But then once you fight the battle within yourself, then there's the battle in the outside world with the people that we are around, the people that care about us, the people that know us, and everything like that. So then once we fight the internal battle, then there's another battle. But it can be accomplished. You can get through it. And it'll probably take some time. It'll probably take some patience on your part and some patience on her part, some forgiveness, some grace. And it can turn out being a lovely thing. I remember this, when I was in college, one of my mom was a college professor, and one of her kids, her name was Beth. She had a daughter named Beth. And then at one point, after she was an adult, decided that she was a man. And she went by the name Brett. And did the whole gender reassignment surgery, did all of that stuff, right? And, she ended up, Brett, ended up marrying a woman. They did IVF and they have 2 kids, so they did, so they have a family. And it was amazing to me to see that, and to see the strength of Brett as he went through all that. And it proved to me that it could be done. I don't necessarily know if it's the best. I think it would be a lot easier if we could accept our gender as our biological sex, because then we wouldn't have that internal struggle. If we could learn how to get past, it depends on what it is, right? Sometimes it's stereotypical things. Sometimes, in my marriage, I did mostly feminine things. My wife did mostly masculine things. It was pretty wild, at least when it came to being in the house. Because we go to family events and whatnot, we go to Thanksgiving dinner, and she'd be in the living room watching football with her dad and her brothers. And I'd be in the kitchen cleaning dishes, But it didn't change my gender. And I know that's not all there is, but there's a lot more that can go into this. But I just want to tell you, Shark Jelly, we love you. We want what's best for you. We're going to love you. We're going to accept you here. You're welcome here anytime. You're welcome with your topics, whatever you might be struggling with. As this process goes, I would imagine there will be even more struggles, because it takes time to get through some of this. And my hope and my prayer is that you and your mom can reconcile with each other, that you can learn to accept each other, that you can learn to figure this out and talk through things. There may be some emotional conversations that happen. It's an emotional topic. It's an emotionally hot topic. And it can cause all kinds of things. And there are all kinds of variables in people's backgrounds, people's, belief systems, all kinds of stuff that come into play. But Shark Jelly, you're a good person. and we love you. And I hope that those words can sink down into your heart so you know that you're accepted and loved and you're valuable. And with that, that's about all I have. Was there anything else, Joe, that you could think of, or Princess, if you had anything you wanted to talk about?
There's one thing I just want to address because I know that there
Mm.
will be probably concerns for people who watch it of, what about intersex? You know,
Mhm.
yes, genetics are not perfect. So there are times where you have an X chromosome, you have a Y chromosome, and you might have elsewhere in your body two X chromosomes. Or you might have three or more X chromosomes, or you might have double Y chromosomes, or you can have all sorts of variations that occur just because of how the process of mixing genes works.
Mhm.
And that can lead to a variety of different bodies because all of us are very different from one another. If you look at Joe's face and you look at Joe's face and you look at my face, we're all very different.
Mhm.
But that also means that there's variation between body to body, you know. So that does exist and there should be support for that as well.
Mhm.
But that also doesn't define all of who you are.
Mhm.
So I think that's the note I'll add for that.
Mm.
Perfect.
Very,
Thanks,
very well said.
Princess.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was gonna try and tell you, Joe. I'm like, he's calling me out as a biology teacher, but Princess has a biology degree, and I'm over here like, there is a level of, I think, understanding that even teachers are people. Like, there are people who are better than us at even the things that we teach. There's an old School of Rock quote: "Those who can't do teach. Those who can't teach teach gym." Sorry to all my gym teachers out there. I love you. Um, but all of that to say, like, there are levels that I don't. When I spoke earlier, I speak when I'm teaching generally in generalities. Like, I can't go into all of the specifics. And Princess is right. Uh, and well, the percentages of those people might be small. If you have a school of 2,000 people, you should expect that a handful of those people will be experiencing those conditions.
Mhm.
Like, just because it's a small percentage doesn't mean those people don't exist. Far from it. So I just did want to point that out. Like, oh, I'm going to speak in generalities because that's where I come from. But when you want specifics or specific things, you should definitely reach out to people who are well qualified in those areas
Mm.
Yeah,
for the
totally.
specificity. So that's all I wanted to talk on there.
Mm. Excellent. Well, Shark Jelly, thank you so much for your topic. Thank you for having the courage to express it to us. Thank you for having the courage to express it to your mom. And man, my thoughts and prayers are with you because I know this is a tough time, and I hope that you're able to come to some peace with your mom, and that you'll be able to work things out. So hopefully what we said was helpful in some way, and feel free to come back and let us know how things are going, give us updates, or if there's anything else that's happening, feel free to let us know. We'd be happy to talk about it, and we'd be happy to have you in our community and help in any way we possibly can. So again, Shark Jelly, thank you so very much. So awesome. Well, we can move on to the next topic. Again, this is Don't Worry Wednesday. This is our show. It's our Wednesday show. It's amazing. You can go to don'tworrywednesday.com. If you have a topic you'd like to submit, you can click the submit a topic button and then fill out the little form. If you leave your name blank, you will be anonymous. And we won't even know your name.
True.
And if you want to be anonymous, but you still want us to know who you are, you can fill in anonymous dash your name, and then it'll be anonymous for the crowd, but we will know.
Yes.
If you'd like for that to be the case.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very, very good point. So yes. Anyway, let's see. And also, if you have a topic that you've submitted and you're here and you'd like us to talk about it, be sure to let us know you're here and at Princess in the chat, and we'd be happy to do your topic. So, all right, our next topic that's coming up is from Toby. Oh, wait, maybe not.
Well, it kind of actually depends because I see Meow is in the chat.
Oh, Meow is in the chat. I see that too. There's a cat in a box next to Meow. So man, everybody's got cat in the boxes. And there's different
Well,
ones.
who doesn't love Box Cat?
Who doesn't love box cat?
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
Cat in a box.
Box.
it's cat. One is Shelter In, and the other is Chill with Cat or Chill W Cat.
Oh yeah, I like that. And the other one is shelter.
Shelter In.
Shelter in. Hey, look at that. I can do it. I know how to do it. Awesome.
Since Meow's here, I think we should do one of Meow's.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
But only because they just showed up. That's
Yeah.
why.
Perfect. Well, our next topic then will be from Meow. And this one, this is going to be called Wondrous Experience Called Life. Oh my. I like the sound of this one already. So yeah, let's see. Let me get it up here on the screen. And then you guys can read along as Princess reads it aloud. So, Princess, whenever you're ready.
In the many wondrous experiences of life, I find myself finding ways to grow and learn. Yet there's always more that I don't know. Living life, what a beautiful thing, yet so filled with struggle and confusion. It is a journey, life, and one that is parallel with the journeys of figuring out who you are and learning to understand your emotions. If you were to ask yourself who you are and what you want, what would your answers be? I think that many of us, myself included, don't know the answers to these questions. I often find myself pausing and taking a moment to ponder life and things like this. Emotions are quite a wild cat, bittersweet and hard to understand. Not that I truly know what a wild cat is like. Emotions and choices in the journey of life, an amazing maze we all must navigate. There are so many questions and things that I can't quite find the words for. My mind is a constant flowing river of thoughts, and my heart is the weather, so complex and unable to be tamed. I think about all these things. To simplify this confusing explanation that probably doesn't make sense, or say quite what I'm trying to say, I ask these questions. What should I do to figure out who I am and what I want? How do I know what choice I should make, what path I should take? What should I do to better understand and navigate my emotions, to learn to accept them, find the courage to face them, and stuff? This topic was a little bit last minute, often mine are, so I may have rushed it a bit and not quite gotten it the way I wanted, and forgot some thoughts for it, but I'm sure we'll be good with y'all discussing it. For context, I base this topic around my thoughts and journal writings on Toradora, but I think that it sort of drifted a bit from what I was imagining. I might end up doing another or so of these topics based on that. Any thoughts are appreciated. Sorry for this rough writing. It's a bit difficult for me to do while voicing my thoughts. Thanks, from Meow.
Wow, thank you, Meow. This is a quite complex topic. And boy, oh boy, when you start talking about the meaning of life, we could talk for decades. There have been books and volumes of books written about, different life journeys and how to decide things. There are lots of self-help books that'll try and tell you one thing, and then other self-help books that'll tell you the opposite. And then, you run into all kinds of crazy stuff, right? You've got the spiritual realm, you've got the physical realm, you've got the mental and emotional, all kinds of stuff that we are this composite being of all of these things. And it's interesting because as we go through these things and as we get hit with different things in our lives and as we make different decisions, you know, sometimes parts of these things can feel broken. And really, when there's pain in one area, it kind of hurts the whole shebang, really. It makes all of them a little bit tougher. So, um I am really, really interested to hear what Joe has to say. One of the reasons that I decided I wanted to do a show with Joe way back when, in years past, called Double Cup of Joe Show, was that he really had a lock on a lot of this stuff. He's a very, very brilliant and wise man in his young age. He's only 1 year younger than me, though. So, like, he's a youngin'. Look at that. He's laughing because he knows it's true.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you and yeah, so take it away, man.
Thanks, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for your question. And I'm gonna try and answer it based on what I remember from Toradora. It's been a minute since I watched that anime series. Joe, have you even watched this series?
Nope.
I'm gonna try and provide a brief synopsis then of what I think he's going for. I'm assuming that you're referring to the very end. Toradora is actually a really great romantic anime that brings its conclusion in with the conclusion of high school, which is unusual. And that doesn't spoil anything, by the way, for those of you who are interested. But it brings its conclusion in with the end of high school. And it touches on a lot of the topics that many of us face about who we're going to be and what we're going to do. And I think it even wraps in with the last question we did about gender identity is who are we? What are we doing here? What's the meaning here? Where would I go? What should I choose? There are a million different directions we could take with this question, and a million different directions that you could take with your life. And so I want you to I don't know exactly what I was referring to, but it's just going on journaling and thinking, and that's good, right? Like you're working through that thinking process. And I think one of the things that you are going to get down to, and what hopefully I can advise you on, is that there isn't, as weird as it's going to sound, there isn't a right answer. Which is really, really hard to get used to. But it adds to the joy and the fun that you can have for the life ahead. And hopefully you can look at my life and go, you know what? Somebody didn't have it together, so it's okay if I don't. Again, as Joe said kind of at the top, I was a golf pro, I was an accountant, and I'm a teacher, and I've only been out of college for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those of you who are out there thinking, I'm a high school student, or I'm a late middle school student, I've got to get into the right schools so I can go off and do the thing I want to do, or else my life is not going to make it. I can tell you with 100% certainty, your life is not going to be what you think it is. Actually, not 100%, 99.9% certainty. Your life will not look like what you think it's going to look like. In 3 years, 5 years, I can be even more certain, and by 10 years, you're just kind of taking a shot in the dark, and that's not bad, right? Like that's not a bad thing, and I don't want you to think that it is. But when you're journaling, when you're thinking about where life is going to take you, you should want to consider what those 3 questions you ask yourself, I think are the great questions to ask yourself about every action you're trying to take, but don't necessarily wrap yourself up in answering them, if that makes any sense. So ask them of yourself. Don't worry about the answer. All right. So the questions you ask yourself are, what should I do to figure out who I am and what I want? How do I know the choice I should make and what path I should take? And what should I do to understand and navigate my emotions, learn to accept them, and find the courage to face them and stuff? All right. So let's start with the first one. How should I figure out who I am and what I want? All right. And the reason we're coming up with this one and the last question is there's a very good chance you won't. There's a very good chance you won't figure out who you are and what you want until after you've already done it, which is a really weird thing to say. You should ask, like in the moment, okay, what kind of person do I want to be? All right. And the person I want to be would do these things. All right. And it doesn't have to be specific, right? Like if I want to be a person who helps people, all right, because that's usually what I hear from a lot of students is I want to help people. I'm like, all right, I have a question for you. Can you help people as a mechanic? Well, absolutely. Can you help people as a nurse? Without a doubt. Can I help people as the McDonald's drive-through worker? Yeah. I mean, so the real question you want to get the answer of is, can I be a person who helps people? Yes. And you can do it in whatever you do. So when wanting to figure out who I am and what I want, who I am is just the amalgamation of what you've done up to that point. Did you try to be a person to help people? Did you work for others, or were you spending time working for yourself? And you can look back and you can go, yes, I was that person, and I wanted to be that person. And also in retrospect, if you don't ask yourself that question and you do the other thing, you might find out that you weren't the person you wanted to be. And that's tough because you can't change it, right? So it's good that you ask yourself that question now before you take that action and go, okay, I want to take that action. I'm going to do that thing. I'm going to help people. And then that gives you all of the options that will achieve that goal, which might be a plethora. And it looks like you haven't made any choice at all, but in reality, you have. All right. And so I'm excited that you were just asking yourself that question. The second question, because I'm not going to answer any of them because there isn't a way for me to answer them. How do I know what choice I should make and what path I should take? Same kind of idea. One of the easiest ways for you to become the person that you will be is to figure out what choice you actually want and is going to have long-term benefits to you. So what choice should you make and what path should you take? Well, which one do you want? That's the question you need to ask yourself. You don't need to ask yourself which path is the right one. Which one do you want to take? Because they're going to come out to a life and it's going to be different. The choices are going to get you to different places, but you know what? Your joy and your acceptance in the moment isn't dependent on which choice you made then. It's how you look back on the choices you made. I'll give you an example. I spent in order to become an expert in anything, you have to spend 10,000 hours doing it. Okay. I became an expert in golf. I spent tens of thousands of hours practicing golf. I became a golf professional. And I don't use that in my career basically at all anymore. Now, there's two ways that I can look at that. That could be either the largest waste of my life. Like I wasted at this stage 30% of my life golfing. Like if you did the math, I can look at it as that, or I can look at it as I did a thing that I truly enjoyed and I spent time with people that I really loved, and I had the opportunity to build relationships and learn things that I would have never learned because I was playing the game of golf. And I don't want to trade it for anything. So in terms of how do I know which path to take that's not going to make me have any regrets? That's going to be a decision made by you at the end. That won't be a decision made by you in the moment. You know, when I was out there playing golf, I wasn't thinking about, man, I might regret this. I was thinking, I've really got to get into my program or I'm going to be in trouble. Things like that. So, look back on the things that you've done in a good light, because you don't get to redo them. It's kind of stuck, right? Like I could be bitter about the fact that I used 10,000 hours golfing. I can be bitter about that, or I could enjoy it and say, you know what? I know what it takes to become an expert in something now. I know the time and the dedication that it takes to get there. And you know what I don't spend time doing anymore? I don't spend time working on things that I don't want to become an expert in. Right? Like I got to get to 10,000 hours in teaching so that I can teach people more effectively. I don't have time to be spending doing I'm going to pick something random. If you do this thing, don't be upset with me. I don't have time to become a professional cook or chef. You might love that, but that's not for me. And so what your question is getting you to the end of is, all right, this is what I have time for in my life. That's what I'm going to do. And then go for it. Go full tilt. Let yourself run out. And then look back and say, you know what? It was good that I did that. All right, last but not least, I'm going to answer the third one, but I think I might actually try to answer this with a real answer and not, who cares? It doesn't matter. What should I do to better understand and navigate my emotions, learn to accept them, and find the courage to face them and stuff? All right. For your understanding, there are you are already doing these things. Normally when I have people ask this question, I tell them, you know what you should do? You should journal. But you're asking these questions because you're journaling, right? You're asking yourselves the questions of how do I navigate my emotions? How do I learn to accept them? How do I find the courage to face them? When you already are, like that's what you're doing. Like when you ask yourselves these questions, you're navigating that emotion, right? Like journal it, ask it. Like, why do I feel love for this person? I don't know. I can't tell you that. You can tell yourself that. But I don't know. And you ask yourself that question. That's what I tell you to do. I tell you to ask yourself those questions, and you already did. Why am I mad at so-and-so? Ask yourself that. It's okay. It's okay to be mad at people. I know it feels like too often, I shouldn't have gotten mad at them. Why not? Well, maybe they did something bad. It's okay to get angry. It's what you do with that. It's what you do with that emotion. You're like, how do I find the courage to face them? It's an emotion. You just ask it. Why do I feel you? What's going on here? Who are you? Why have you invaded my head? It's in cartoons, we always had that. It always seemed like they simplify it, right? Like you have the good angel and the bad angel, or the devil, the good angel, the bad angel, the angel, and the devil, or whatever. I don't know.
Well, that's what I want, a good angel and a not as good angel. That way I'm always making angelic decisions, but
good angel and a mediocre angel on either side. Like, who are you? Why are you here? All right. And that's what journaling does. Journaling is something that lets you like face a feeling, right? Like you've written it down and you're like, that's a thing that now exists, even though it's always existed. It's just only been in your mind. Now it exists on the paper in front of you, and you can face it for what it is, for that emotion that you're feeling. All right? Once you write it down, you can say, okay, this is a situation that I'm feeling right there. How do I deal with that? Right? But until you deal with it, until you write it down, it's in your head and you're going, how do I deal with my brain? How do I fight myself? I'm winning and losing at the same time. And instead, by writing things down, you can say, okay, I felt that emotion in this situation. Why did I feel that? Maybe you got mad because your brother punched you in the face. I might be one to say that that's probably a good reason to get mad at someone. And from there, you can go and say, well, after he punched me in the face, I got mad and I punched him. Might not have been the best response. However, you know that that's your emotion. So what can you do next time? Well, you have now you can look at options for dealing with your emotions. You can navigate your emotions. Sometimes it's a physical way of navigating your emotions. You say, if I just dodge his punch next time, I won't get as mad at him. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's I let him hit me in somewhere that I'm not going to get so angry I punch him back. Maybe it's that. I don't know. But I know that by asking yourself the question in a journal, you can actually face the emotion outside of yourself so that you're not fighting yourself, but instead fighting your emotion. So, in answer to your question, you're already doing it. Do the thing that you are doing, and it should end well for you. Yeah, that's all I have to add here. I'm sure one of the two other compatriots here, they're wise, they're knowledgeable. We have all, at some level, asked ourselves these questions. And if you haven't yet, prepare yourself, you will. But I'm sure they will be able to speak wonderfully on this topic. So somebody take this mic away from me.
I
Yes.
find that emotions are better not as enemies or adversaries, but as your friends. Because it makes it a whole lot easier to work things out and actually get to resolution when they're your friend. Um, you know, that's my perspective. But I'm gonna kind of piggy off of, while Joe was speaking, I kind of was following along and writing my own notes. Um, so I don't exactly have the topic in front of me, but it'll apply anyways. Some of the things that I think of is if you want to know who you are, get back in touch with what you like to do. Get back in touch with what are you good at, and go looking for people that you want to be around. Because, in the end, as I wrote in the chat as well, it's not about taking the right path, but rather making the path that you choose the right one. Because you can do a ton of different things. But really, you should look at things. What are some things you enjoy to do? Do you like biking? Do you like going for walks? Do you like collecting objects? Do you like, going out exploring new places? Do you like talking to new people? Do you like learning new skills? All of those things can lead to a better understanding of who you are because you're looking at it from, well, what do I like? You know, what am I good at? What natural skills have I been gifted to be able to do? For instance, I'm blessed with singing. I have a pretty nice singing voice. And so that's something I both like to do and I'm good at. And so at some point I am working slowly towards being able to do more singing stuff because I love to sing, you know. But there's plenty of other things that I also like to do. I like to dance. Um, I like science, obviously, as that is my job. I both like it and I'm good at it. So, I found that was a great path to take. But, I could have also taken another path at looking at marketing. I could look at customer service because I love helping people. But you can help people at, again, whatever level you like. If you like doing art, you can help people because art can make people feel good. Art can help people to understand the world from a different perspective. It can be calming. It can provoke deep thought. You know, if you like, video games, you can bring entertainment to people. Whether that's a job or whether that's a hobby, you can do that too. And there's plenty of people out there who would, go looking on YouTube being like, I really want to go watch somebody having a good time, you know, and people do. That's why entertainment works so well. um, you know, And if I had to say something that I would be an expert in, that I've spent a lot of hours in, I would probably have to say that I've spent 30% of my life messaging people online in long, lengthy conversations.
It's
I
something you're
could
good
also
at.
perhaps say it about video games, but I don't know what I've played more, video games or talking to people. But, but I could have been doing a lot of other things with my time potentially rather than just talking to people online. I could have been learning how to do dance classes. I could have been doing other, you know, learning opportunities. I could have gone out and done parties. I could have, done art. I could have learned how to draw better. I could do a lot of other things too, but I've really learned how to communicate with people. I'm not perfect because I don't think that you can ever really be perfect in communication,
Mm,
because that almost always involves two parties.
mhm.
But I have learned a ton of techniques and stuff on how to ask the right questions or how to phrase questions better for one person versus another. I've learned, as I talked about in another one, how to have mini conversations. There's the 5-second conversation, there's the 1 minute conversation, there's the 5 minute conversation, there's the 30-minute or more conversation. And I've learned those things. I've learned how to be tactful with certain things. I've learned some more of the boundaries of like, when do I step in this way or when do I step in that way? When do I need to be supportive and when do I need to be like, hey, you really gotta treat yourself nicer, rather than being like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I understand," and finding the nuances of people. And so there is great value in it. Some people could see it as a waste. Why are you spending your time on your phone all that much? You know, what are those online friends? Rah, 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 People could have all sorts of different perspectives on that
Mhm.
and could see it as a waste. But what's more important is that you take the time that you spend and you see the value in it. And if there's not value that you're seeing in it, maybe you should move on to something else. Or maybe you're not looking hard enough.
Mm, mhm.
But, you know. Then of course we come back to emotions. And it's you should really build a relationship with yourself. We've talked about probably many times where it's like, oh, be your own friend. I know there's a song out there that has the line, be your own best friend and not your worst enemy. And it's really true. You have a relationship with yourself. And the person you actually spend the most time with, be surprised, is yourself.
Yeah, you
You
can't
spend,
escape that person. Holy cow.
well, you can try, but you're not going to succeed for very long if you somehow manage it.
They even follow you into the bathroom.
Yep. So, talk to yourself, drop in, learn about yourself, but also the way that you express things. Many things that are emotional, there's also a physical reaction. So, one thing that you can always do is, if you feel comfortable to do so, you can close your eyes, take a deep breath, and then scan your body from head to toe and just notice yourself. Does your head hurt or is your head clear? Do your ears feel weird? Do you feel the breeze? Is there anything like, does your heart feel tight or does it feel fine? Are your toes curled up because it's cold? Just noticing your body and where it's at. And then, of course, you got to do the same with your emotions. Like, hey, how am I feeling right now? And then sorting that through and asking yourself, well, I'm not really sure how I feel. Do I feel happy? Well, I certainly had some enjoyable things in my day. Okay. So then we shuffle those. Okay. So we've addressed those. What else is in this conglomeration mix of soup? And you start picking out the letters of, well, I remember being disappointed by this today. And, I was kind of annoyed by this. I know we were just driving, but at the same time, the guy didn't have to cut right in front of me,
Mhm.
you know? And some of them can be deeper things, and even they can hit you suddenly. I was going through and I've moved more recently into this lovely space, and so I was going through some stuff and I found my baby book, which is a real treasure to me because it has memories from that I don't remember because I was just a little baby at the time. But there's a bunch of old pictures in there, and I see my family. And all of a sudden, I had this kind of sad feeling, and I was like, I don't quite get it. But what I did was I stopped and I sat in it. I was like, okay, let the emotion be there. Be okay with it being there. It's not a problem. Emotion is just another piece of information. It isn't sourced like logic is from an outside thing, but from an internal source. Whether it's from intuition or different pattern recognition that you've had that comes to this moment, you know? And so I sat with it and I was like, okay, what is the sadness here from? And sometimes it's, from something that never came to be. In the case for me, my parents divorced when I was really young. And so when I looked at the front page and I saw their wedding photo, I was like, I remember as a kid feeling sad that my parents divorced because I loved both of them and they were both wonderful, but they were struggling together. And I know that in logic, it wouldn't have been good for them to stay together because they needed to have that space for them to both grow into better people. But there's still that feeling there sometimes. It's just like, I kind of wish that they could have stayed together, you know? And then it was like, okay, well, I've identified it, I've lived with it, and I'm going to say thank you. Thank you, emotion, for being here. I enjoyed your time, and I'm going to move forward with my day. But I appreciated your visit. And then you kind of try to let it go. I see Meow in the chat also said, but what about the feeling of lacking emotions when you're not really feeling or whatever? That's okay too. You don't have to be feeling constantly. I'm someone who feels pretty constantly, but even myself, there are times where it's like, usually when I'm very emotionally drained, where it's just like, I don't feel anything. But
Hmm.
that's not a problem. It's not a bad thing to not feel anything. You can also think of it as in you don't have any information one way or another, you know? And that's okay. You can just sit in that, it's like, okay, well, I am just content in the moment for, just existing. But I feel like that would be one that perhaps one of the others might have a better perspective of, or Ryan would probably have a really good perspective of that one since
Mm,
he had some experience for a part of his time where he, just threw away emotions for a while, I think. I don't
mm.
quite remember, you know, how he phrased it or what his experience was with that. But yeah, so I think that's all I've got for the moment. So I'll turn it back to the Joes.
All right. Well, thank you, Princess. That was awesome. And thank you, Joe. And you guys like covered like everything that I thought I might cover. So I'm like, okay, they're covering that, they're covering that, they're covering that. Now, like, what am I going to cover? Maybe I don't have to cover anything. But there's one thing. um, I did want to talk about one thing, Meow, and go back and listen to what Princess and Joe have both said because they're going to like their perspective is fantastic. All of that. I love what Joe was talking about and the 10,000 hours and doing that. I spent way more than 10,000 hours playing the drums. I'm pretty good at drumming now. I've been drumming for longer than I've been alive. It's amazing. Um yes. And Joe, you're muted. So
Oh no, I muted myself, but he knew.
yeah,
We have a telepathic connection.
we do. Yes. I can still see you after all. So unless you're talking to yourself in the silence. But yeah, and then what Princess was talking about, making your emotions your friends, that's tremendously good advice because yeah, emotions can come in and they can sweep us away and we can just get caught up and gone and then like, whoa, holy cow, where am I at? And then like you talked about, Meow, what about the feeling of lacking emotion, like you're not really feeling anything? I've definitely been there. I've been there countless times. And yes, what Kel said is appropriate. That happens to me. Depression can cause you to suppress your emotions. It can cause you to feel nothing whatsoever. It can cause you to just not care, like what's the point? What's the point of anything? And I love how you phrased your topic, Meow, how you talked about it in your topic, because it talks what the angle you took was somebody who's searching. And that's beautiful. There are others, and I've been in this camp before too, that when you start thinking about such things, you end up with the conclusion of what is even the point? And that's a dangerous place to be. And that's a place, if you get to that point when you're wrestling with stuff like this and you're going through all these things like, okay, how do I figure out what I want to do, who I am, what do I want, how do I handle my emotions? And then you finally just kind of get to the point where you throw your hands up in the air and you're like, what is the point of all this? At that point, it may be good to talk to a counselor. It may be good to talk to a counselor before you get to that point. But that can be a dangerous spot to be in, especially if you ruminate on it for a while. Because if you deal with like, what's the point of all this? And then you can't find the answer to what's the point of all this. Like this is ridiculous. And then it can drive you crazy. And so at that point, it would be definitely good to talk to a therapist, a counselor, somebody who can help you unpack the feelings and the thoughts that are going on in your head and help guide you. They'll be able to ask the right questions to figure out where you're at in order to guide you back to where you need to be. Because there is a point. We don't always know what it is. There's a purpose. And, like Joe was talking about, I don't know. You don't necessarily know what the right thing to do is until you've already done it. And then maybe you know, right? So there's one thing that I wanted to touch on, and that's the concept of adversity. Because no matter what you do, no matter what you decide, no matter who you decide you're going to be, no matter what you decide you're going to do, and all the emotions that come along throughout your existence, and, come your way, and you read them and you use them as signals to guide you in places, and you can either treat them as your friends or not. Princess is very good, at helping us understand that, yes, your emotions can be your friends. They're good. They're good to have, right? They can help you learn about yourself. But as you navigate all this, something's going to hit you out of the blue. You're going to get smacked in the face or punched in the stomach or whatever, and you're going to get laid out. Something unexpected is going to happen. And that's okay too. So the question is, how do you handle that? How do you handle adversity? And it's not necessarily how fast you get back up. I remember people talking about, how you handle adversity is how fast you can get back up. And you know what? I got really fast at getting back up. And you know what I was doing? I was burying my emotions, and I was burying my humanness, and I was burying all this stuff for the very fact of getting back up and going again. And what was happening is I was covering over a lot of the things that I needed to learn and a lot of the things that I needed to do in those situations. And I was just getting back up and going again, getting back up and going again. And you know what? And I thought I was doing the right thing. And it turns out that that wasn't necessarily the healthiest route. There were a lot of things that had to be processed and still have to be processed. And now it's like digging back in with the therapist to try and figure out all that stuff. And I'm not here to tell you about all my problems. I'm not going to do that. But what I'm going to tell you to do is when you get hit with adversity, it's not necessarily the best thing to just get back up and go. Although that's what a lot of people will tell you. How fast can you get back up when you get knocked down? In some cases, that's good to do. In business, that's good. But in like relationships with others, in relationships with yourself, if you get knocked down, sometimes there's something you need to learn while you're down there. And sometimes there's something that needs to be processed while you're down there. And so the question is, when you get hit, how do you handle it? When you come up against an obstacle, how do you handle it? Can you handle it? Can you process the emotions? Can you think through it logically, take the logical steps, and get through it? Because in the course of your 10,000 hours of whatever you decide to do, and I love what Princess put in the chat, that quote from Ryan. It's not necessarily about making the right decisions. It's about making a decision and then making it the right decision. Right? Because that's wonderful, because you have options. You have all kinds of options at your fingertips. You can do all kinds of stuff. And journaling is going to help you solidify this stuff. I love the fact that you're journaling, because it's going to help you, take these thoughts and make them concrete. It puts them down on paper, and then you can sort through them. It's almost like, you kind of free your mind of the clutter by pouring it out onto paper. And it makes things a lot easier to sort out. That's another good thing to continue doing when you handle adversity. Because as you go forward, I'm telling you, it's going to happen. And it's going to be great. You're going to get hit, and it's, you're going to have to deal with stuff. But that's life, right? All of us have that. That's why we do this show. Because people deal with adversity. People deal with stuff. And sometimes it's hard to process through things and think about it and dig through the mess. And it helps to have an outside perspective sometimes. It helps to have a friend, a parent, a trusted confidant, a therapist, a pastor, a priest, whoever, right? Somebody that has been through something similar that's a little bit further down the path that can then guide you along. And so I'll tell you what, Meow. Go back and listen to what Joe and Princess had to say. And then pay attention to when things come your way that hold you back, when obstacles come your way. How are you at processing that? I used to say, how fast can you get back up? I don't subscribe to that necessarily anymore. Because there's things to learn and things to be handled sometimes. You can't always just brush stuff under the rug or throw things in the closet. You gotta deal with it. So anyway, that's about all I have. Do either of you have anything left that strikes your fancy that you'd want to talk about on this topic?
Yes.
Looks like Princess
I
does.
do.
All right. Then it's all
For
yours.
those who are not journalers like me, I don't journal. Not because it wouldn't be a great thing to do, but I simply cannot get myself to actually stick to it for anything more than like 2 or 3 times,
Mm,
if I'm lucky. I'm not a paper person when it comes to that.
that's okay.
So, good news is that there's other things, such as, most handy phones or even, computers, if you have a microphone. You can do text to speech and you can just have it be typed out via text. Or
Mm-hmm.
you can physically type it out on like a Google document or on your phone's notepad, you know. Um, or if you feel like you're kind of in that looping sort of thing where you've thought about something and you've thought about something and you've thought about something, you thought about something, and you really haven't moved from where you started, and it's been like 3 hours, you can always find a friend to message, and I find that usually helps, even if they don't necessarily respond, even if
Mm.
it's just like a hey, I just need to rant something out to you, you know. and you just type it out and somebody else sees it, sometimes that alone can help you just move forward. And sometimes having a conversation with them also can help you move forward. But that's another thing. Kel's Kitchen recommends recording yourself. That's another great thing you can do. You can audio record, you could video record, whatever floats your fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but, there are many other ways to journal other than just paper and pencil. A lot of people can do that and like to do that, and all the power to you. But if that is not your cup of tea and you're like, well, I can't really do that journaling thing, just try to find a medium that actually helps you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yes,
all I had to add.
because the idea is, you're getting your thoughts out somehow, whether it's writing them, whether it's speaking them and recording them, or even you don't even necessarily even need to record them necessarily, but it's getting your thoughts out of your head and out somewhere, right? So then you can process things.
And if you're having trouble like fitting it in, like, oh man, but I'm so busy. I get home and then I'm just on my computer, like, oh, and I have homework, and then oh, then I have to go to my job, and then I just sleep, eat, work, and that's all you do. Uh, you can always do it when you're in the shower,
Mm.
or you
Mm-hmm.
can do it when you're on the toilet. You can, do it when you're on your drive if you have a drive, or a bus ride if that's how you commute,
Mm-hmm.
bicycling, as long as you're paying enough attention also to what you're doing. You can always do that too as another time to add into your day. Um, you know, you could do it before you go to bed. But,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, that's all I've got. Joe, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Joe. Oh, she was probably talking to me.
I'm
Shoot.
looking at you.
Yeah, and I just wanna point out one last. It's just kind of continuation, not really anything new. The idea that like, uh, it lets you actually face when you write something or you speak it out. It helps you to face the emotion for what it actually is, rather than what you think it is.
Mm.
If that makes any sense. Like you can have this perception of like what an emotion feels like, and that might not be what it is. So, as a crazy extra example, um, when my wife and I were, well, she's now my wife. She's my girlfriend at the time. So we broke up for uh, a few months. It was only a few months. I thought it was forever, but she was like, "Bro, you have a problem." Um, but during that time, I wrote her like daily letters, that weren't very nice. They really weren't. Um, but I had to verbalize because I said them to. I said what I was writing out loud. But as I wrote it, I had to get into words what I was feeling, because I wasn't understanding my emotion. This gets back at your original thought there of like, what if I don't feel anything? Well, it's probably because you just don't understand what you're feeling. It's probably not that you're not feeling something. It's probably that you don't understand what it is that you are feeling. Now, sometimes you can suppress your emotions because of psychology reasons. You're trying to prevent yourself from feeling pain or something like that. But often when we say we're not feeling anything, what we're actually saying is, I don't feel like I'm feeling anything. I don't think I'm feeling anything. And if we wrote it down, we'd actually say, I'm feeling a lot right now. I just didn't know how to quantify it. I didn't know how to phrase it. So in that instance, when we were broken up, I wrote to my wife. I'm like, you've done these terrible things, which is blatantly wasn't true. We had broken up because things I was doing, because I hadn't fully said, hey, we're gonna do this. No, were there some mean things that probably were true in that? Absolutely. And in any relationship, you do have to say those things. You have to be assertive. I was talking to Joe yesterday about assertiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to you have to say like, look, no, there are some things that I've done wrong, but there's also in any relationship things that the other person has done wrong. And you know how I can 100% guarantee it. And you know why? It's because you're both human, unless you have a pet. But I'm going to assume that in your relationships you're worried about their other humans. 100% guarantee both of you have caused a problem because you're human. And I know I caused lots of problems in my relationships. And I am very grateful for those people who say, I forgive you for those mistakes and issues. But when you're writing things out, it lets you get at the heart of it. It lets you write down things that I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't do that. I wrote out these letters to her, and I said some things that I probably would have never been able to say to her face in a million years. I probably still wouldn't be able to say the things I wrote down to her face. But I needed to get them out. I needed to get the emotions out for what they were. Like, I think you're a terrible person, and I think what you're doing is wrong, and I think that that you're a problem. And for some areas, like, I didn't actually believe that. Like, I said it, that's what I felt, but like, I didn't believe that. I'm like, that's a lie. Like, I just wrote down a lie on a piece of paper, but that was what I was feeling, so I wrote it. And you'll feel that. You'll come across that where you're going to come into some emotions that you're like, that's not me. That's a lie. That's a bad thing. And that's good. That helps you get out emotions that are the emotions you don't want to make friends with, for lack of like a Princess has
Well,
talked
again,
about
emotions
making,
are a piece of information, and sometimes you get false logical information thrown at you. That's why you have to double check things, but you can get that with emotions too. I mean, you know, just because you have an emotion doesn't make it right, doesn't make it true. It just is.
exactly. So these are the emotions you just kind of throw out. And you're like, I'm putting it out there. So I can express it. So I can like get out of my system, kind of remove that thought. Now the next section that I did there, I don't always recommend. I gave her all those letters and let her read them all.
I usually burn them.
Yeah, but
I
I
usually delete them.
I did it for a specific. It was after we'd already gotten back together at that stage, but it's an important level of letting people see you for like the emotions that you feel, right? Like, I'm not very good at communicating emotion. If you haven't figured that out already in the Double Cup of Joe show, like, there's not a whole lot of emotion to my voice, and there's not a whole lot of emotion into my answers. My answers are going to be very much like, hey, this would help you. Take it or leave it. I don't care. Like, that kind of, not that I don't care. I really do care about you guys. But like, there isn't a whole lot of emotion behind it. It's like, this is just information that you can do with what you will. And in that instance, as like wife, or not wife at the time, but basically if we got back together, we're probably getting married. You're going to need to know this about me. Like, these are my emotions. These are how I'm going to feel in certain instances. It's good for you to know this. And if you have that kind of relationship with another person or other people, I recommend it. It's just, be careful about that. Because have it be someone you trust. Because it's a lot, right? Like, it's feelings. And on a lot of what we do in our regular day is inhibit don't act on all of the feelings that you feel, right? Like, you don't do that. I would generally guess that the vast majority of you don't act on everything you feel for a good reason, right? Like, man, I really feel like donuts are the way to go for like all the meals of my life. But I also consciously understand that the results may vary and will not be good for me. Like, if you have somebody who can see all of your emotions and say, okay, I see those. I don't like all of them, but I see them and we can work on them together. That's a very, very powerful thing. That's truly, I think, at the end of the day, hopefully what therapists and psychologists are doing is, hey, we're going to look at that together and we're going to deal with that together, and not all of it's great. So anyway, whether or not you do, I recommend that you voice all of the emotion that you feel. This is well beyond the scope of what your original topic was. By the way, I think we hijacked your topic and took it somewhere it didn't want to go. But emotions are a very large topic. So you might be dealing with any of this, and that's okay too. But as you're grappling with these questions, understand that there are going to be parts of the answers as you ask them that you don't like. That's okay. That's okay. It's still okay to ask. So that's all I got, Joe. I've probably overtalked my welcome, but it was good.
You're totally fine. But yeah, hey, thank you so much, Meow, for the topic. Do we have time to do one more?
We'd go over. It's currently the runtime is 1:47, so we have like a little under 15 minutes.
Do you think we could do a topic? If Joe talks only, then we could do a topic.
Do we have anything that we would not? I don't think we have a topic that we're not going to expose on for.
Yeah, I don't think we have a short topic.
Well, then we can keep talking about emotions.
Yeah, let's fill in the emotional topic, or we can leave it there. But I mean, in terms of thank you everyone for being a part of this in the chat. I see a lot of conversation happening, some of it related, some of it unrelated, and that's good, right? Like it's good that you are all asking yourselves these questions. We're all, because and this is why I really want to say thank you all for everyone who asks a question, is all of us are dealing with all of these things. Like it's easy for us to say this from the reverse side, like we're talking to your question. Each of us is going to talk to your question in a way that is probably on our mind, right? I think I had a topic I listened to from a pastor, and he was preaching, and he said, everyone gets up here and thinks I'm talking to them about something going on in their life, but like 95% of the time when I get up here, it's because it's what's going on in my life. I'm talking to you about things I'm facing. I'm dealing with the inability to deal with my emotions correctly. I'm dealing with the fact that I'm not being a very good husband right now, or whatever it is. So, I hope you come here and you find wisdom. Understand that we're people too. Like you come and talk, and we're talking on these topics because there's things that are going on in our lives that deal with the same thing.
Yep, and
go ahead, Joe.
One of the crazy things about life, it seems, that I've learned in my 29 years of living is that when you get hit with something, you get hit with something that would cause you to write a Don't Worry Wednesday topic, right? And so by the way, I do have to do this plug one last time. Go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button if you have a topic, and then fill out the thing and do that. And then, so we would be happy to do your topic. But, one of the things that as you hit things that would cause you to do that, you end up eventually getting through them. And then what happens is you graduate to a bigger one. It seems to be the case. It's pretty wild. But all the things you learned in the previous one set you up to handle better the next one. And, and there might be a whole bunch of other ones of that same size that hit you in that time between, right? Because that's part of our life. We live this life, and there are challenges. There are things to think about. And Meow, I have to tell you, as you're trying to think about who you are and what you want to be and, all these things, you might consider digging into philosophy. I've found the Stoics to be very good. Marcus Aurelius, I can't think of the other one. Seneca, there's a few other ones. But if you look into some of the Stoic philosophers, also dig into religion. There are answers in religion as well. I'm a Catholic. Joe is a Protestant Christian, right? You're a non-denominational
Something in there, yeah.
something leaning toward Baptist, Reformed, something, blah, blah, whatever.
I don't know. I don't know all the theological terms. So,
Gotcha. Okay. Yes, Christian. We're all Christian here, right? And so Christianity has had lots of answers. I most recently was our bishop gave us an assignment this week to go through the litany of humility. It was something written by a cardinal back in the early 1900s, and that was something that really, really made an impact on me. I was like, wow, and it just really helps. Like when you dig into some of these things that start to move into the spiritual realm, they start to move into more of, a purpose for what we're doing, and then how to live with virtues. That's one of the things that this program for this year that our bishop has put together. It's, learning discipleship. And this next section we're getting into is the virtues. How do we live with virtue? And virtues are a wonderful thing. You've heard us talk about it on the show. Ryan is tremendous at, talking about the different virtues, how to live them. And he's a great example of living these virtues as well. But one of the things that was setting us up to getting into learning about the virtues and how to live with virtue was to understand humility. Because when you can understand what humility is, that's not degrading yourself, right? Like sometimes we can go too far. That happens. I'm guilty of that, and many times. But we go through this process of understanding what humility is and understanding that, yes, okay, I am where I'm at. I can be in a better place. I can be better than what I am. And I can learn. And these things that hit me in my life, all these challenges, these things I have to think about, these things I have to ponder, these things that I'm journaling about, these unexpected things that come our way and hit us out of the blue, all these things carry with them a seed of a lesson. And it's something, there is something to learn. There's something to learn. There's something to grow from, something to grow through. And then eventually you're going to hit another one. Yay. Super
Yay.
exciting. Yay. And they and there was much rejoicing. Yay.
Ryan asked for it at one point in his life, as he said, he was like, yeah, I'm doing great. Give me another problem. Give me a big one.
Right?
That he got it. And he was like, oh, I see.
Yep. Yep. I remember being on the cusp of something, and I was deep in prayer, and I was deep in thought and prayer and everything. And I remember getting, like one of the, that prayer is more than just talking to God. It's also listening and listening for things. And God speaks to us in different ways. I know some of you might not believe in God, but God, the origin of all things, right? The thing that everything came from, like who started the whole thing rolling, right? That's what we consider God in Christianity. And, when we pray, we can talk to God and we can listen. I remember getting this, I was listening and I was like, he was kind of giving me a little bit of a rundown of like, hey, get ready. Because it's about to get real around here. And I remember talking to Ryan about that. And here's the thing. One of the things that you better be very careful about when you're praying, think twice, maybe 3 times or 4 times before you tell God, bring it.
Yep.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it, man. Because then he'll be like, okay.
You asked for it, so
Yep.
here you shall receive.
Here you go, right? And so like, yeah, then it happens, and it's crazy, wild, fun. But anyway, but here's the thing. All of those things have areas for us to grow in and learn from. And Meow, I think it's beautiful that you're thinking through these things. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And you can dig into all kinds of places to get answers, right? If you're a Christian, I would definitely dig into your Bible. And I would definitely pray. And I would definitely meditate. Meditating is one of the best things that I've ever learned how to do, and that is basic. It's different than prayer. Prayer is a conversation with your creator, right? Or even, in Catholicism, we pray to saints, which is just asking them to pray for us, right? I mean, that's what we do. We ask saints in heaven to say, hey, you're sitting up there with God. Can you pray for me? That'd be great. You're pretty holy. So since you're in heaven, so hey, pray for me. But meditating is different. Meditating is when you're basically just emptying your mind. You actively empty your mind. You dismiss all your thoughts. You sit there, focus on your breathing, and let go of thoughts. And you just sit there and exist for a little while. And it can be one of the most beneficial things because our lives are full of clutter. Would you agree with that? Mental clutter. We are bombarded with messages all day long. We're bombarded with thoughts all day long, things all day long. We have more stuff in this world than we've had ever in history. More things and more messages. It's the information age. We've got the internet. We've got TV. We've got all kinds of stuff. To take some time in silence and to silence your mind, I've found that to be so beneficial. And I would encourage you to do that too. You'll be amazed once you clear your mind, some of the things that you can come up with. Some of the things and the perspectives that you can move towards when you do that on a regular basis. So anyway, now I've hijacked the conversation. Anyone else have any thoughts?
No, I think it's a good place to wrap it as we've hit basically the 2-hour mark.
Hey, look
Just
at
like
that. What's that, Joe?
Just like you planned.
Ooh, you know what, Easy? I gotta tell you, I have not said any of your messages in the chat this whole time, and I'm so sorry because, guys, you should scroll back up and read what Easy had to say in here. And here's this last one. Faith and reason are shoes on your feet. You can travel further with both than you can with just one. That, man, I'll tell you what, because they should go hand in hand, faith and reason, right? They absolutely should. Because, hey, if you have this blind faith in something that's not true or not reasonable, then it's not gonna take you to a very good place. But I also know people who have reasoned their way out of faith. And that doesn't lead to a very good place either. So it's very, very true. And yes, science and faith are not mutually exclusive. They go hand in hand. Tell you what, Easy, you're awesome. All of you guys in the chat, you guys are awesome. Again, go to don'tworrywednesday.com. Click the submit a topic button if you have something you would like to share. If you'd like to have us talk about, we would love to do your topic. And I would say, at Princess to let us know you're here, but it's the end of the show. So we're not going to be doing any topics. But next time when you come, if you're here, let us know you're here and at Princess. So then we can do your topic. It'd be great. So anyway, you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for your support. Joe, did you have any closing remarks?
The chat looked exceptionally beautiful today.
They did. I thought so.
Prime. But yes, thank you all again for sharing. Easy, thank you for putting in a plethora of very, very wise quotes. And even if you aren't so wise, we appreciate your conversation. I type in the chat and I'm not that wise, so feel free to do it as well.
Whatever, you are too. You
I
are
put
too. Have you heard yourself talk this whole time?
celopathy in the chat. I'm even referencing it right now. That's not wise.
Oh man, Princess, you got any closing remarks?
Thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you next Wednesday with our next show.
Next
Mm-hmm.
It'll be
Wednesday,
a very
contact.
interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it will be interesting. They are all fairly interesting, I would say.
Oh,
Indeed.
for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but thank you guys so much for being here. And until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful life. And we'll
Don't
see you
worry.
next. And don't worry, because it's Wednesday. But tomorrow's Thursday, and you can consider it Wednesday and not worry also. So that'd be good. But all right, we love you guys. We will see you next time on Don't Worry Wednesday. Until then, take care. We love you.
Bye-bye.